Moms! Considering Touhou's all-female cast, it would seem natural that there would be a lot of motherly bonds throughout the series. But when looking at canon as a whole, there's not that many, surprisingly. However, there are a few, and I think that the few there are make up some of the most heartwarming relationships in the series. So to celebrate Mother's Day, let's take a look at some moms in Touhou. Also yes, this is the video that I mentioned in the fanfiction one. The first group of characters I want to talk about is the Moria Temple Gang. Kaneko, Suwako, and Sanai. Now, I wouldn't blame you if you thought the idea of them being a family unit was invented by fanon, but there are a lot of scenes that actually do demonstrate the familial bond the trio has. Lotus Eaters Chapter 15 has a very fun interaction between Sanai and Kaneko. When Kaneko's contemplating in thought, Sanai comes to comfort her. Kaneko talks about how she was rude to Miyoi, and Sanai brushes it off as Kaneko just being her naturally rude self. Kaneko gets mad, and Sanai backs off. Sanai's like a child pushing the bounds of her conversation a bit too much, while Kaneko is the defensive adult. When Kaneko talks about being rude, Sanai compares it to Kaneko always rejecting her ideas. The pair laugh together. Sanai tells Kaneko how the human village acts, and they trust each other. There's scenes like this scattered throughout Touhou. In Wild and Horned Hermit, after Reimu calls Sanai an uncultured monkey because Sanai criticizes Reimu for drinking too much, Suwako helps Sanai come up with a revenge plan. And then my personal favorite one, in a canon overview of UFO, Sanai eagerly tells Suwako and Kaneko about her adventure. Kaneko talks about how she's happy Sanai's a bit more independent, but Suwako thinks Sanai should have made a bigger impression. But ultimately, they decide what matters is that Sanai had fun. If that doesn't scream mom energy, I don't know what does. From all of their interactions, there's a nice sense of warmth you can feel from the Morias. Despite being a weird trio of 3 gods, they're probably the most loving family in the series. Sanai is lucky to have 2 great moms. Second on my list is a character I don't think people think of at first, Eirin. Kaguya fits here too, but we see it a bit more from Eirin's perspective. Of course, Eirin and Kaguya were in Gensokyo to hide from the moon, but both ended up quite enjoying life in Gensokyo. But one day, their world would change when a runaway rabbit came to Earth, begging for asylum from a war on the moon. The pair decided to allow the rabbit to stay with them. Her name was Reisen, which came from Lunar Society. Eirin decided to give her a new name, Udongen. Meanwhile, Kaguya just calls all rabbits Inaba. Reisen adopted Eirin's name to the middle, and with Kaguya's touch, she became Reisen Udongen Inaba. In Reisen, we see a lot of stress and anxiety, likely because of how rabbits are treated on the moon. When she makes a mistake in cheating Detective Satori, she immediately starts blaming herself and anticipates punishment. But Eirin just pats her on the head, as if telling her, it's going to be okay. In Cajun Lunatic Renegade, when Reisen hears about another moon rabbit, her hands start to tremble in fear because of the possibility the moon might find her. Eirin sees this and calms her down. Reisen, there's nothing for you to be afraid of. Just do as I say, and nothing will happen to Aente. I'm sure of it. But first, what should we do? First, I want you to set the tea down here, and drink it slowly. In Reisen's bad ending to Legacy of Lunatic Kingdom, she avoids Aente out of fear since she didn't solve the incident. But Kaguya comes and tells her, it's okay to come home. Reisen is always dealing with trauma from her experiences on the moon, no matter the point in canon. But Eirin and Kaguya are there to counsel her. They want Reisen to know that she's safe on Earth. Their biggest show of love comes in Touhou 8. When Reisen is found and commanded to go back to the moon, she prepares to leave. With a lunar veil, it is plausible that Reisen could have erased her memories of ever being on Earth. But it's Reisen. She's a part of their family now. They won't give her up, especially if she doesn't want to go. So, Eirin creates a fake moon, not just to protect herself and Kaguya, but also to protect Reisen, so all of them can be safe. In Touhou 8, Reisen is extremely grateful, which is why she's so excited to do her job. Aente is important for Reisen. She is quite possibly the first lunar rabbit to ever experience love. So, we go from a pair of moon moms to what's arguably the exact opposite. Junko. We all know the story. Junko had a son. This son was killed by Hiyoi, Change's husband. So, Junko holds a grudge against Change. Junko attacks the moon, teams up with Hecatea, and ends up doing a really good job. Out of all of the incidents in Touhou, 15's is arguably one of the most dire, with an entire world's citizens being trapped in the dream world. But here's the thing. In Junko's Omake, we learn that her anger has been purified to the point that she forgets why she's even mad. She loses her will to fight as nothing direct happens for so long. And this is of course reflected in the Stage 6 theme, the sea where one's home planet reflects. I've talked about this song before, so I'll keep it brief. This is a very sad song, and I think it reflects Junko's state. When all the rage washes away, what does she have? She has a son who's gone. A son she misses. So, that was pretty downbeat, but let's end this on a happier mother. In fact, this next relationship is one of my favorites in the series. Let's talk about Reimu and Kasen. Aside from Junko, this might be the most direct relationship. Why? In chapter 38 of Wild and Horned Hermit, Sanai directly says that Kasen acts like Reimu's mom, which Kasen swiftly denies, only to then worry about Reimu. This is in chapter 38 out of 50, so by this point, we can totally buy Reimu and Kasen's relationship being perceived this way. It's interesting to observe how Kasen's relationship with Reimu changes. I mentioned this next bit in my autism video. In chapter 5, Kasen tries to train Reimu to be more diligent, and seems to succeed. But her friend Komachi tells her, "You don't know Reimu that well yet. Reimu just isn't the type of person who works off of discipline." And so, she ends up reverting to her old ways. A lot of WA is just Kasen learning about Reimu, learning about her emotional swings, her money-making schemes, and her heart. She grows to care a lot for Reimu. She's insanely worried when Reimu gets stuck in a deep sleep. She tries to cheer Reimu up after she thinks she's depressed. She even helps Reimu build Hakure Land, which fails. But it feels like a very personal thing between her, Reimu, and Marissa. This all culminates in the WA climax and epilogue, which I won't spoil here. Believe me, I have as many issues with the ending as everyone else does. But I think what happens in it does demonstrate one of the main points of WA. In Wild and Horned Hermit, Kasen is relearning Gensokyo, and as she does that, she forms new bonds and strengthens old ones. Komachi becomes her best friend. She cheers Suika up. She becomes friends with two outsiders. And she ends up with a very close relationship to Reimu. One that, as Sanai says, is much like that of a mother and daughter. And the funniest part, I don't think either of them would admit it. And those were some moms in Touhou. I tried to take a look at mostly canon material, since I think a lot of fans assume the familial side of Touhou is mainly fanon. But there is a lot of genuine heart with these relationships. Zune has a family, so I wouldn't be surprised if some of these ideas came from his own experiences. Anyways, happy Mother's Day.